So now let's get to Kid Cudi, my favorite witness of the week. Not because like I think that I feel bad for Kid Cudi in a way because Kid Cudi, he's just a guy, right? He's a rapper and an actor. And Kid Cudi was dating Cassie Ventura back in 2011. Kid Cudi believed that Cassie and Sean Combs were not dating at the time. Well, apparently they still were, according to the testimony. And so Kid Cudi testified in December of 2011. Cassie called him and was like, "Oh my God, Sean Combs found out about us. He's furious." And she was like freaking out. And he's like, well, he didn't know why she was freaking out because he thought they were broken up. And so she wanted him to pick her up. He went and picked her up, took her to a hotel that was like 15 minutes from his house. And then all of a sudden, they get a phone call from Capricorn Clark, who will be testifying next Tuesday. That was Sean Combs' assistant and somebody that Cassie was friends with. And so Sean Combs she said Sean Combs is going to Kid Cudi's house. Kid Cudi's real name is Scott Muscudi. So she said she was at the house and that Sean Combs was there. She was outside or something like that. And Sean Combs was in the house. Kid Cudi had Sean Combs's number. So he calls him and he was like, and he testifies that he says to Sean Combs, and he said Sean Combs answered the phone. He was very calm. And he said, "I'll be quite candid with you. I was like, mother effer, what are you doing in my house, mother effer?" Like all this stuff. Like I kind of went through it in my Crime Fix episode. Like, and I was reading this testimony, and like Kid Cudi's about as real as you can get. Kid Cudi leaves and he goes to his house. He goes back to his house, and Sean Combs is like, "Yeah, I'm here. I'll wait for you," or whatever. So Kid Cudi drives back to his house. This is Kid Cudi's house in Los Angeles, mind you. He goes back to his house. He thought his security cameras were working, but they weren't that night. When he gets to the house, it appears that the security cameras had been turned to the side, like somebody had moved them. He goes into the house, and there are Christmas presents on the counter. And there was something from Chanel, and the Christmas presents had been kind of rifled through. The Chanel thing had been opened. And he's like, his dog is locked in the bathroom. And he would typically leave his dog out, he said, roaming in the house. He never locked his dog in the bathroom. And he said his dog is locked in a bathroom. And after that, his dog was just acting weird. Like his dog was acting like jittery and on edge. So he kind of thinks like something happened to his dog. What? He doesn't know, but he thinks something happened to his dog. Then he goes and spends the holidays at Cassie's parents' house in Connecticut with her and her family. Then January rolls around, and, Cassie and Kid Cudi's relationship ends at some point. And it's January, and Kid Cudi says, "I get a call from my dog's babysitter." That's what he said, my dog's babysitter. He has a babysitter for his dog. And he says that she's like, "Your car is on fire." He drives a Porsche. I think he said a Porsche Carrera. And he says, the babysitter for the dog is like, your car's on fire. And he's like, "What?" And it's 5:30 or 6 in the morning. So he sends his friend Chip over to his house to take pictures. And literally his Porsche is on fire. And so he gets to his house, and here is Kid Cudi's car. You can see, and it almost looks to me like somebody cut the roof of the car and then threw the Molotov cocktail in the roof. Because if you just threw a Molotov cocktail on top of this, I think it would bounce. I don't think it would just immediately start burning through and burn the hole and fall in. But then apparently it had fallen into the driver's seat. So here's Kid Cudi's car. The cops are called. The cops investigate. They take DNA and fingerprints. Cops never file charges. They don't find out who did it. And he said when he found out, that his car had been set on fire, he sees it and he's like, "What the F?" Of course. And apparently the courtroom starts laughing. And he's literally like, I mean, who wouldn't be like, what the F? If my car was on fire, I'd probably say the same thing. Wouldn't you? I mean, who wouldn't? Like, you're like, my car's on fire? Like, somebody set my car on fire. The Molotov cocktail was in the driver's side door, he said, or in the driver's seat. But when he arrived, it was on the ground. So the next day, he has his manager call D-Rock, Sean Combs' head of security, and they set up a meeting at the Soho House in Los Angeles. He said that he walks into a room and there's like, it's just the wall, it's like all windows. And he said that Sean Combs is standing there with his arms clasped behind his back, like a villain in a like the villain in a Marvel movie. And apparently that drew some laughs from the crowd too. They have a conversation, and apparently Sean Combs says something like, oh, that was my girl, and I thought, we're homies, and that was my girl, and and he's like, I didn't think you were dating, or something like that. So they basically end things with a handshake, and it's almost like, are we cool? And so Kid Cudi says, while he's got his hand, while they're shaking hands, he made sure to look him in the eye. And he's looking Sean Combs in the eye while their hands are clasped. And he says to Sean Combs, looking him straight in the eye, so what are we going to do about my car? And he says, Sean Combs says to him, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's totally calm. Like, literally, Sean Combs like, I no idea what you're talking about. And he said he took his hand out of the handshake and he walked away. The prosecutor asked him, so since that time, have you had any break-ins at your house? No. Since that time, have you had any car fires? No. So there were never any charges filed in this case. On cross-examination, Brian Steele, who represented Young Thug very famously, questions Kid Cudi, and he says, so you didn't know that Cassie was dating Sean Combs at the same time she was seeing you? And he said, no. And he said, and you said that she played you. And he's like, yeah, she played me. And he's like, and you had no idea she played you? He's like, no. Basically, like, they're trying to say that Cassie's just an opportunist and a manipulator and an operator and a liar and stuff like that. And also, there was apparently a DNA sample or DNA samples taken from Kid Cudi's car, and the DNA sample came back as being from a female. So is the defense going to say that Cassie did this thing with the Molotov cocktail? Maybe they will. Kid Cudi did not know it was female DNA in the car. Had no clue. And didn't know. He had called the cops a few times to check in to see what was going on. Basically, what happened next was Brian Steele continues to question Kid Cudi, and he's trying to score some points. And I think he did score some points. You plant that seed in the jurors' minds. So he continues to question Kid Cudi, and he's trying to basically make it out that Cassie obviously wasn't honest with him. That Cassie, yes, she said she was physically abused by Sean Combs, but Cassie never told Kid Cudi she had been sexually abused by Sean Combs. That was something that was a key point on cross-examination. So on redirect, Emily Johnson starts asking, like, why did your relationship with Cassie Ventura end? And he said, basically, it's just too much drama. Too much drama. And he said something about, well, also for our own safety. So Brian Steele says, sidebar, we need a sidebar. They go up for a sidebar, and he's like, all hot and bothered. I don't like this. We need to stop this. I want a mistrial, because she knows that the next answer he's gonna say something like, which is weird that he's even asking for a mistrial at a sidebar, because he didn't say it, and the judge said that, But Brian Steele said, she knows his next answer is going to be, I had talked to my friends and they said that Sean Combs has had people killed because he started talking about being afraid for their safety. The judge is like, he didn't say that. You don't get to get a mistrial when he didn't even say that. So he told the woman to move on to another line of questioning. Basically, they wrap it up. But Kid Cudi was a very good witness. I thought he was a very good witness. Let me show you Kid Cudi walking out of court. But here he is walking out of court.
Hey guys.
So, and then Kid Cudi, he didn't say anything when he walked out of court, but then he actually did post on X afterwards. So here, let me play what he said on X after he testified. I heard Young Thug called Kid Cudi a snitch. Somebody was saying that. I haven't seen that, but I heard it. I think that's kind of lame, honestly, because he's not a snitch. He's not a snitch. Like, I don't see that at all, but whatever. Here's Kid Cudi.
Guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me, and yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
So Neverland's his new song. I've heard a lot of people, and I've seen some news reports saying stuff like, "Oh, where's the RICO? Where's this? Where's that?" And I totally get it, because like earlier this week, I was like, "This seems kind of thin." And when I think of racketeering, RICO, you know what I think of? You know what I think of? I think of the mob, and that's why it was created. The perfect example, Al Capone. They did not get they couldn't get Al Capone on the murders and stuff like that. They couldn't get him on anything but tax evasion. That's what they could get him on. And so they kind of came up with RICO. It's organized crime is what it is. And it's when you have an organization and you're committing crimes. But if you look at the indictment for Sean Combs, when you read the racketeering statute, and I was reading it earlier today, I think of racketeering as, oh, I've got, I'm John Gotti, or I'm, Tony Soprano or whatever, and I'm running a garbage company and I use it as a front to launder money, or I'm, I got a laundromat or a bar or whatever, and I'm using it as a front to do other things. I'm operating a legitimate business, but I'm using it to do other stuff. But that's not necessarily what they're saying he did or he had to have done. I feel like we could do like a whole nother thing on the whole racketeering charge. So we won't get deep into that tonight, but we'll just cover it a little bit. But they're basically saying that Sean Combs, through his businesses and just through himself and his businesses, not just Bad Boy Records, but Combs Global, because he has a number of different businesses, was running a criminal enterprise. And a lot of people think that the government's not meeting the bar on this. I've heard the question posed, I've heard like some news outlets say, well, legal experts, there are some legal experts who say, well, who are they? I need their names. I've heard this talked about, like, who are these legal experts? Because I've spoken to other lawyers. I've spoke to Nima Rahmani yesterday or 2 days ago. He thinks they are making the RICO case, because I was earlier this week. I'm like, this seems thin when I think of racketeering. Maybe it's not. Here's the indictment, what they're alleging. From at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, which was last September, Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown were members and associates of a criminal organization. The criminal organization is the Combs Enterprise or the Enterprise. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, torching a Porsche, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The Combs Enterprise includes its leadership, its members, and its associates that constituted an enterprise. The Combs Enterprise consisted of Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, PD, Love, the defendant, entities within the Combs business, including but not limited to Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global, individuals employed by and associated with the Combs business, and others known and unknown. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objectives of Combs Enterprise. The Combs Enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. The Combs Enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Purposes of the Combs Enterprise: operating a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industries, including, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, alcoholic spirits businesses, and a marketing agency and a television network and media company. Preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power, reputation, and brand of Sean Combs. Enriching members and associates of the enterprise, including its leader, Combs, and in particular those who demonstrated loyalty to Combs and willingness to conceal his crimes. Preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power of the Combs Enterprise, including the power of its leaders, Combs, through violence, use of firearms, threats of violence, coercion, and verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Fulfilling the personal desires of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including through the exploitation of women and the use of commercial sex workers. So it goes through this long list of things about the enterprise. I wonder if the government is meeting the bar here for the RICO charge. I can read it one way and think, yeah, maybe they are getting there. They're building the house. You know, it's like when they start the case, they go from the ground up and they go up and up and up. So maybe they're getting there eventually. We'll just have to wait and see. We're at the end of week 2, and this was a short week. So we'll see if they're going to get there or not. Apparently, for a criminal enterprise, you only need like 2 crimes. I think there has to also, with the RICO statute, there has to be a pattern of criminal activity. So I think I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Remember to like and subscribe, and the thumbs up is very important. I hope you guys have a wonderful, safe holiday weekend, and we'll meet again.